If you're a buyer, because there's inventory now is the time to get in.
Hello and welcome back to Change the Market, your weekly look at the changing real estate market. I'm Brian Shilligo, and I'm joined once again by our resident real estate expert, Chris Masiello. Chris, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, Brian, good to be with you. Good to be with everybody else.
Fantastic. So this is going to be our last episode of 2022. We're going to take a couple weeks off for the holidays along with everybody else, but we will be back in 2023. So kind of in light of that, we're going to do things a little bit different this episode. We're going to have a bit of a recap. So Chris, why don't you go in and kind of start on discussing where things have been before we get into where things are going in 2023.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think a compilation of the last few weeks would be a good way to end the year because, again, we continue to have a really fluid environment. So interest rates dropped again for the third week in a row. So we started, 3 weeks ago, we started at the high sixes, and now we're in the low sixes. And the inflation numbers have gotten much better. And so I know the Federal Reserve is meeting today. It's probably likely that we won't see as steep of a rate hike as what we've experienced, although that's somewhat speculation. But, it could be in the 0.5 point range versus the 0.75 point range, which we've been experiencing. Gas energy prices have gone down. If you've been at the pumps, if you've noticed. So I think inflation is getting tamer, which is helpful for all of us, and helpful in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah.
A lot of sentiment now that we're seeing, and it's now being picked up in mainstream news in articles. A lot of sentiment about if you're a buyer, and we've talked about this in the last 2 episodes. If you're a buyer, because there's inventory now is the time to get in, and it's appearing as if that tipping point is below 6% interest rates. Once interest rates drop below 6%, we're going to see people come back into the market again. And we talked about this last week. It's interesting though. You saw just little trickles of it, of there being awareness around that over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and now it's much louder. And if we're seeing it louder in the news, right, then the consumer is going to see it. And so, we're going to have buyers that are going to be, really thinking that now is the time to be getting into it. Once we get on the other side of the holidays, getting back into the market. A lot of people sitting on the sidelines, and that's not going to last forever. Because fundamentally, we still have the same housing dynamic where we have more families than we have homes to put them in. And so that dynamic has not gone away.
Awesome. So yeah, that was a great recap of where we've been. So let's kind of take that and moving forward. And again, we'll have an episode in 2023, right? Kind of really getting into this and, as we get into the new year. But right now, let's get a little bit of a preview of what we can expect coming in the new year.
So I think 2023 will look a lot like 2022 in that we're going to have this new paradigm. I've had a lot of interviews in the last couple of weeks about where the market's going to go and how the year was. And I think that what we're going to see is a continuation of, and just like we were saying just a minute ago about, we still have the same inventory situation. So we're going to have this very unique sustained paradigm where we have appreciation in the market. Now, it might not be 20% like we've had before, but it could be high single digits or low double digits, 7 to 12%, something like that. Because you don't really still have a lot of inventory. And so we're going to see housing continue to appreciate, despite what people are saying about, that sales prices will decline. I just don't see that in this coming year, given the dynamics we have. But that'll be against the backdrop of declining unit sales. So just by comparison, the country last year closed about, so this will be in 2021. Closed just under 6 million sales nationwide, and this year we'll probably close somewhere 4.3, 4.4 million. So it's a pretty significant decline. Typically, you would have home prices start to decline when you see that type of decline in unit count, but you're not going to have that. So we're going to have probably modest unit growth but still well below what we've had in the last couple of years. And then I think we'll start to see continuing moderation in interest rates. And again, we're going to see programs like the 3, 5, and 7-year adjustable rate mortgages, I think, will become more popular because those tend to be lower than the 30-year fixed. And so I think really similar to this year, improving as we get into the late third, fourth quarter next year.
Great. So what advice do you have going into the new year for both buyers and real estate agents and people in the industry so that they can really hit the ground running in the new year? Do you have any advice, do you think, that would be helpful going into this kind of as the market progresses into the 2023?
Yeah, I think generally, whether it's business or personal, I'll kind of put them together. Is, of course, the time of year everyone's, thinking about, next year.
Yes.
And so kind of my advice would be, create a vision. Again, this works for business and it works for personal. Create a vision for where you want to be a year from now, and do a little bit of time traveling. Think about it in terms of like, how am I going to feel a year from now when I have fulfilled my vision? And then once you understand, once you get the sense of that feeling, okay, because we remember events based on how we feel. And so if we can generate the feeling of how good it's going to be when I achieve, the vision that I've created, then you write down your steps. Feel it first, then back into the details. And don't write down, my advice, don't give yourself like 15 steps, okay? 3, 5. These are the 3 or 5 things that I need to do to get to that, to achieve my vision and get that amazing feeling this time next year.
Awesome. I think that's great advice. I think it's a very good thing to keep in mind as we wrap up this 2022 and get ready for the new year. Thank you again for joining me, Chris. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Change in the Market. We'll be back, like I said, in a couple weeks in the new year. We're going to take a few weeks off and celebrate the holidays. But if you're enjoying us, make sure you follow us on whatever platform you've been listening or watching us on, and join us back here in 2023 for a brand new episode of Change and the Market.
Have a great holiday.